The modernisms that we're going to look at, there's 5 of them. I chose sections that are kind of easy to explain and perhaps easy to try, because I think the fun part of considering what new techniques you might want to add in could be that maybe some early success with something would encourage you to try more. So that gives you a little bit of a starting point for what I mean by modernisms. You can tell something is out of sync or out of whack, and it forces you to listen because you don't know quite what to expect. If I take away the ability that you could ignore the piece and maybe even if you were ignoring it, somewhat still enjoy it. If I engage you in it, I take away your ability to some extent, or maybe the goal is to take even more of that away for you to kind of disregard or put the piece into some sort of background aspect of that moment of your life. The next section or example is also kind of from a gentler part of the symphony, and this time I use electronic instruments to kind of get the environment going, and then the instruments are using extended techniques almost in a sound design capacity. There's really no melody going on here. The rhythm would be hard to distinguish if it's even there, but there's plenty of color, and the color's always changing and making you kind of pay attention to what else might be kind of popping up out of the landscape. But the orchestral instruments are treated almost like sound effects, but not to the point that you have to hear something immediately in the foreground. They blend into an undulating landscape, and that kind of keeps the modernisms in sort of a maybe an ambient sort of cast. All right, the next example is going to add in rhythm and energy that we haven't had in the first examples, and we're going to kind of borrow from the world of pop music. The rhythmic language is going to be more to drive things forward. It's also in pop sometimes kind of simplified or reduced, but it's very forward. At least it's intended to be moving forward. The modernisms here would be to steal the easy to understand aspects of pop, but then layer in the harmonic language and an orchestrational language that's very dense and intense. So cluster chords, very aggressive orchestration, very biting, and by throwing those two worlds together, you get the energy of and kind of the welcoming side of pop rhythm, and then you get the overwhelmingly kind of sculpted sound of symphonic music by adding in things orchestrationally and also from the denser harmonic choices. So as you can see, that ends up kind of entering the more of the epic sort of sound, maybe bigger than life, and certainly there's a lot of musicians involved, and it's a massively energetic and complex sound, but it also feels kind of like big symphonic music is supposed to be able to do that at some point. So this kind of how the piece kind of cooks up to that level over time. The next example is going to be where the dissonance is the modernism, but the passion is the timeless. We're going to go to a section of the symphony where there's an extended cello solo. And it's almost like any notes could be the cello solo because the performance is so passionate. You actually get taken into kind of the beauty and simplicity of the cello solo. And harmonically, you can kind of disassociate yourself from the fact that these are chords that are definitely not following a prescribed pattern that a popism or a more less composed sort of piece would perhaps provide you. So the cellist is basically speaking a language that you can understand, even though you don't you're not supposed to necessarily understand the words themselves. So this is very expressive playing, and I'm just super in love with this particular passage with the solo cello. Let's listen. For the last example of adding modernisms to your music, this is kind of the kitchen sink version. Everything is being thrown at this. And in this case, the rhythms are not pop. There's nothing pop about any of this, except perhaps there's somewhat of a nod to video game scoring at the epic level, but probably a little bit too. The temperature's too high for maybe that world too, because it's not intended to be to have kind of even a supportive limit, like maybe a video game score has to still support the game. In this case, I get to blow all the walls out of the theater with the subject on the stage. In this case, the music, everything about it is too hot to touch. So the instruments, instead of being a part of rhythm, their extended techniques are turned into the rhythm in the way they're all kind of being treated like percussion instruments. So everything is edgy, everything is short duration, punchy, crunchy, and so there's not any limit to how much density the sound can have or the harmony can have, but it's still kind of delivered in with a rhythmic drive that doesn't, I think, even at that point, push your audience to a point where they can't take it. This is kind of a climax of the symphony, or one of them, so it kind of builds up to this point. It doesn't stay here forever, but long enough to make the symphonic point. But these examples are at least my effort to show you that it's kind of fun to try what modernisms might be. Certainly, we all do things differently, but these things work for me, and the list of modernisms is endless. And if you maybe start exploring some of these things, if this presentation's opened some doors, I'm sure you'll find that your understanding and your approach to all these concepts can not just be yours, but be yours in some unique sense, and perhaps you can see that it would be a unique contribution to your compositional work and your expressiveness. Thank you.